Clinton and Greenspan made some changes to the consumer price index because they were worried they were going to have to pay too much out in Social Security, which is tied to the consumer price index. So they removed a couple of the considerations from the consumer price index. So you have to look at more real life. Thomas just asked me. He said, like what? Well, they removed like fuel, like gas. From the consumer price index. That's something that I think most consumers utilize on a daily basis. But we've got to remove that because we don't want to have to pay out too much. So let's minimize or play down the effects of inflation in the market. Anyway, so there's kind of the relation that we have. Here's some of the other things that we see being affected by it. The first one here is savings accounts. And especially in our day and age where we have interest rates set at the points that they are, you put money into a savings account, and a lot of people, especially those who've gone through the Great Depression or times right after it, will put money into their savings account. And, as we talked about the FDIC a while ago, and they'll put it up to 100,000 or the 250,000 mark, and then they'll go and open another account at another bank, and because they want to be protected. But what they don't realize is their savings, which maybe if they have a really great interest rate, or maybe they're even in a CD and they're getting 5 or 6% on their money over the course of a year, that savings rate is being eaten away it's being eaten away plus some of their principal from the inflation rate. So they're actually losing money in their savings account because it's not compensating them for the inflation rate, only for what the bank can invest it for. And then similarly, if you click next, stocks and bonds. You could even get a killer rate on stocks, but still on some stocks and bonds, you're going to lose out because you're out here working every day, laboring for dollars so that you can buy stocks and bonds to hopefully eventually be able to retire on the interest that those stocks and bonds accrue for you. But those stocks and bonds still, depending on what the government does, they still might not reach the inflation rate. And so the only growth you have in your stock account is the money that you actually physically put in there. Or even if it is going up, it's still going down because the value of the dollar is dropping. And so the next one is just all other dollar-denominated investments across the board will feel the effects of inflation in the market. They will all descend at a relative rate to the dollar. So what are some other ways do you see it? Click on the next one, and you'll see that we have commodities, food, fuel, building supplies, vehicles, or anything in that real realm, gold, silver, any of those. You'll see the price of those go up in relation to the inflation that's happening in the market. And it's very real. I mean, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but you used to be able to go down to the store and buy a half gallon of ice cream, and it was X price, right? Well, that because the inflation was going up and people didn't want people to stop buying ice cream, they just started putting it for the same price and putting it at 1.5 gallons, or not 1.5 gallons, but 1.5 quarts rather than 2 quarts. And just recently I've seen Breyers has dropped theirs to 1.25 quarts. But they've kept the price basically the same. But that's still an effect of inflation because it's cost them more to create it, but they want the consumer to still purchase it, so they don't want the price to go up too much, so they just reduce the amount that's in the container that they sell and sell it for the same amount. And we go and purchase it because, it's about the same price. So it's a way that they try and maintain their market share, even though they can see that their costs are going up. But then in any of those commodities, you'll see that. Here's a quote from John Maynard Keynes, who is, responsible, I guess, for most of the economic thought at our federal government, and it's permeated a lot of our governmental institutions as well. But he said that by a continuing process of inflation, government can confiscate secretly and unobserved an important part of the wealth of their citizens. Interesting. Next one was from Hayek. I do not think it is an exaggeration to say history is largely a history of inflation. Usually inflation is engineered by governments for the gain of governments. So Hayek is from the Austrian School of Economics. He's from the other side of the ballpark, and he's saying the same thing. And then we have Alan Greenspan, who I don't know, you'd kind of think he was a kind of a middleman, because he started out on more kind of the Austrian or monetarist side, and then he moved, he changed teams during the middle of the game. Anyway, in the absence of the gold standard, there is no way to protect savings from confiscation through inflation. There is no safe store of value. There's no safe store of value, because as the government continues to print, the value continues to erode. I've talked a lot about what it does, what it is, and the problems associated with it. But I've titled this "The Fragrant Stink." Well, what makes it? Why is it the fragrant stink? Well, the stink is all those negative things that we've talked about. The fragrant thing, or the thing that gets people addicted to it, is one, government. I did mention a couple things in there that they utilize it excessively because it gives them the ability to tax more. They can spend a greater amount today, and by spending a greater amount today, it should increase their tax revenues tomorrow. And they continually inflate the dollar, and they do that through expanding a national debt, and that debt is based on the full faith and credit of us as people, that we will continue to labor and pay our taxes. And as we continue to inflate the dollar, we increase the number of taxable events that happen, and they get the benefit of spending today's dollars, those dollars today that they've borrowed at today's rate, and then we later receive them after they've entered the money supply and they've started to become diluted and devalued, and so we get less benefit from them in the marketplace, and that continually erodes. Then as well, for the consumer side, we have inflation go up, and that this could happen as well. Rather than just dollars, currency put into the market, it could be credit, it could be loans from the federal government, from the Federal Reserve, out into the system, which we've seen a tremendous amount of in recent days and months. But when those come to the consumer and their dollar starts to get devalued, they may take out a loan today, say for $20,000, and maybe they were making $60,000 a year when they took out that $20,000 loan. Well, in 10 years down the line, when their loan is due, inflation has allowed them to increase their earning capacity in dollars to maybe $80,000 a year, or maybe more, which gives them greater capacity to be able to pay back the debt that they accrued at $20,000 in 10 years ago dollars. So it's this. So banks like it because they can loan out today, and as long as inflation continues to happen, they have a higher probability of getting a return. Even though that's the dollar is being devalued, they also get the benefit of being able to execute more loans. And as the money supply increases, and so it becomes intoxicating, especially for socialists, to be able to leverage inflation as a means for control and manipulation of the economy.
Thank you for listening to this Pyrolytical.com call for freedom. For more principled analysis of news and events, please visit us at pyrolytical.com.